legal identification. Our driver's licenses, birth certificates, passports. They show our name, date of birth, and a single letter marker indicating our gender. But what if the name or gender didn't match who you are? What if the person on your ID card simply isn't you? For some people living in Utah, that is a reality, and changing it is not always easy. It was the moment Crystal Legionnaires learned who she was meant to be.
These feelings that I've been having for so long and wondering what they are, this is what they are, and what it meant to be trans.
While on the Weber State University debate team, she says she found her voice.
I was finally able to find myself and start that transition process.
She took on the name Crystal. While she was able to recognize who she really was, she says the systems in place around her did not.
My school wouldn't allow me to change my name on any of their records.
The school's records reflected her old name and gender on her state ID and birth certificate.
It was really hard and immediately outed me as trans because of those documents.
Crystal decided to change her legal identification, but the process was not straightforward.
Got kind of overwhelmed and had to have someone walk me through the process.
To change your name and gender marker on your Utah birth certificate, you must petition the court, have a letter from the Sex Offender Registry verifying you're not a sex offender, and the National Center for Transgender Equality recommends providing the court with evidence of your transition with a signed statement from your doctor.
I was very excited because I'd been waiting on this for 2.5 years at that point.
Crystal followed all of those rules, brought all the paperwork here to the Weber County Courthouse, then waited for them to assign a judge.
I'd initially felt pretty confident. I had messaged in a transgender Facebook page for people in Utah, and they were like, oh yeah, there's someone that said I went to that judge and he was fine.
But Crystal had a very different experience.
It's apparent to me now that that person had gender confirmation surgery. So I had not.
She says gender reassignment surgery, also known as GRS, became a sticking point for the judge at Crystal's hearing. She gave us this recording of their interaction.
Crystal, without further guidance from the legislature, again, I'm back to that issue of not granting the gender change. I'm somewhat sympathetic to your explanation that you may not be able to. But where you haven't engaged the GRS, I'm not sure that it's appropriate to legally recognize your ability to go into female locker rooms or bathrooms. How do I balance your safety issues with other person's safety issues? Well, that's a struggle and a consideration I've got to take.
The judge denied Crystal's petition.
I was devastated.
But she wasn't ready to give up. Crystal went to the State Department and changed the name and gender on her passport. That does not require a court order. She went back to the judge.
I get in there and it's the first hearing all over again. Just this time it's different.
Then another step. The judge told her she had to bring a doctor to court. When she asked why he hadn't mentioned that before, the judge responded, "There's no law on this, no set standard."
I don't know why I felt like I was being criminally tried. It was just a simple granting of changing a gender marker on the birth certificate, but I felt like I was being interrogated like I had just done a crime. The crime of being me, or being transgender, I guess.
While doing this story, we learned Crystal is not alone in her struggles.
We're now getting over 60 petitions for gender changes a year.
State Senator Todd Weiler began paying attention to this issue after a different Weber County judge began denying all gender change petitions.
The case from Weber County is what brought this to my attention, because the judge basically said, there's no law that says I have to do this, so I'm not going to do it.
That lack of legislation has not stopped other courts in Utah from granting the gender marker change, even without GRS.
Right now, it's really up to the judge to decide what the requirement is. I don't think it's fair that, depending on what zip code you live in, you may get a judge that doesn't see it your way.
Taking up the issue, Senator Weiler introduced a bill in the 2018 legislative session to clarify the requirements for a gender marker change. That bill,
voting will now be closed,
didn't pass. But Weiler will sponsor another version next session.
It's right now the government's, in some ways, is forcing people to carry around a state-issued ID card that may not match how they feel inside, and that's what I'm trying to address.
Until then, whether a gender marker change is granted or not depends on which judge you get.
Which is ridiculous.
Crystal says she's grateful for Weiler's efforts, but she's not entirely hopeful about the outcome.
I didn't think that there was going to be any action taken. I would have been very surprised. And we live in a society that is not terribly trans inclusive, let alone one that is accepting of trans people to the point of trying to make our lives easier.
Now, the judge did grant Crystal's name change, but not her gender marker. The judge did not see the letter from her doctor as admissible evidence. He agreed to have her doctor testify by phone, but Crystal had to cancel her hearing because she was sick. She says she likely won't try again until something in the court or the law changes. Meanwhile, the courts continue to say they are waiting for guidance from the legislature.